Does anyone remember Gravity Falls? Like, was it actually good? I've got to be honest, I'm actually not too familiar with this cartoon. Obviously, I've heard of it and recognize the popular characters like oddly fit grandpa who probably gambles, or the world's oldest Taylor Swift fan, or just straight up the Illuminati, I guess. My point is, I don't know much about the show, but I do hear it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
So I guess I'll take a look at it in this video. Why not? With only 2 seasons to its name, Gravity Falls is an animated TV series so good it's given the title of Best Disney Show by its loyal fan base. Even after 8 years of being completely starved of content, people still support this show. It's probably the only cartoon in history that can make grown adults travel across the world in real life just to find a USB with an MP3 file on it. This actually happened, by the way, look it up. But is it actually that good? This is my first time properly watching this thing, so there's no bias here, all right? I want to find out if it's really as good as people say it is, or if it's just a pile of doo-doo. I'm not really sure what else to say, to be honest, so let's just get into it. Let's begin our journey into Gravity Falls. This episode is called Tourist Trapped. This is a nice reference to New York City and its ridiculous hot dog prices. Actually though, this show takes place in the fictitious town of Gravity Falls. We start our adventure without wasting any time. We meet our 2 main characters, Dipper and Mabel. They're twin siblings and currently riding a golf cart at 50 miles an hour because there seems to be a giant monster chasing them. How unfortunate. This entire scene is basically used to establish how wacky the show is right off the bat, because as soon as we're about to get to the big climax of the scene, the episode freeze frames and we cut to the intro. Unironically, the Gravity Falls theme is one of the catchiest cartoon themes ever. Like, this shit will stay in your head for days. Anyway, our story actually begins a while before the golf cart incident. We start at the very beginning. We see Dipper and Mabel getting sent away for playing too many video games and playing with their cat, apparently. They get sent to their uncle's place for the summer, which is located in the middle of the woods. I guess that'll teach them to appreciate touching grass or something. I honestly have no idea. And as you can probably expect, life at Gravity Falls isn't quite the same as life back home.
Check out all my splinters!
And there's a goat on my bed.
Looking more into each character here, Mabel seems to be a very happy-go-lucky person. She's very optimistic, energetic, and has a bubbly personality. I'm really happy for her, but, like, stay away from me, please. I'm trying to be depressed here. Dipper, on the other hand, is a little more judgmental of everything. He's really smart, rational, and self-conscious, but don't worry, he can still have a good time. So despite being twins, there's a clear contrast between the two.
Yay!
We then immediately meet their great Uncle Stan, who the wiki says is manipulative, greedy, and selfish, but I think he's just a little prankster. It's explained that Stan turned his house into a tourist trap. Basically, he filled his house up with junk and people pay him to come see it, which sounds a little scummy, but it's not that much different than all those abstract art museums, really. I mean, at least those are colorful, I guess. Anyway, back to the story now, and we find out that Uncle Stan has put both kids to work, but then a young customer comes in and Mabel plants a letter for him to find saying, "Do you like me?" with 3 rigged answers at the bottom. I'm not sure this guy even knows who you are, but okay. Turns out Mabel's just going through her boy crazy phase and, like every e-girl who plays Valorant, just really wants a boyfriend. We then get a quick montage of Mabel flirting with pretty much every guy she sees, even the ones that play Smash Bros for a living. Back to reality now though, and Stan needs someone to put up some signs in the forest to attract some people to the shop. There's a guy named Soos and a girl named Wendy who also worked there, but they say no.
I'd fire all of you if I could.
So naturally, the task falls to Dipper. Dipper is a little hesitant, however, because he thinks there's something a little odd going on in Gravity Falls. He thinks there might be monsters in the forest. Stan reassures him that the only thing in the forest are mosquitoes and fat, sweaty dudes who want to buy merch. We skip ahead to Dipper putting the signs up now, and then of course, almost immediately, something weird happens. As Dipper tries to put a nail in a tree, he finds out that it's not a tree after all, but actually a giant metal pod meant to look like a tree. It has a trap door, and when opened, Dipper finds some sort of old radio looking thing. Maybe he's just playing Portal or something. I don't know. Anyway, he touches something on the radio, a trapdoor in the ground opens up, and Dipper finds an old book. This book ends up being a diary, I think, because of course it is. It has documentation on a bunch of different monsters, and it's really creepy in general. The biggest takeaway being that the book reminds Dipper that in Gravity Falls, there's no one you can trust. Except maybe the sweaty dude from earlier. I don't know, he seems pretty harmless, honestly. So even though Dipper is usually pretty cautious, he straight up just tells Mabel about the book and everything inside it. I guess he figures he can trust her since she literally has the IQ of a newborn chimpanzee.
Well, time to spill the beans. Oh, beans.
Listen, it might be harsh to call her stupid, but at this point in the story, she kind of is. Anyway, turns out Mabel finally found a boyfriend. How exciting. He looks a little creepy and acts a little creepy. He's a creepy guy. He's kind of a creep.
So, what's your name?
Normal. Man!
Dipper, being the logical one, obviously thinks something's wrong with the boyfriend, so he checks the book he found and sees if there's anything that might fit the bill in this scenario. This is when he finds a whole page about the undead. The page mentions how undead have pale skin, bad attitudes, and are often mistaken for teenagers. And just like that, this story turns into The Walking Dead if it starred Ryan Gosling. Dipper looks out the window and we see the zombie guy walking towards Mabel while she just doesn't give a shit. Soos shows up and turns out he overheard everything. He actually says that he believes Dipper since he's seen his fair share of weird things happen, but he explains that it's probably best to just keep it to yourself so no one thinks you're insane. Jeez, where was this guy when Kanye was around? Am I right? Instead of telling anyone, like, I don't know, Mabel even, Dipper decides to just spy on her and the zombie boy from afar. He sees them playing frisbee together, they break into a restaurant together, hell, they even happily frolic in a graveyard together. You know, just regular things you do on a first date. A little later now, and we even see Mabel alone practicing kissing the zombie with a leaf blower, I guess. Like, he could have just used a soccer ball or something, but I guess a leaf blower works. At this moment, Dipper decides that he's seen enough and it's time to tell Mabel what he thinks is really going on. He whips out the Book of Secrets and shows Mabel what her boyfriend really is.
There's shabam! Oh wait, I'm sorry. Shabam!
A zombie?
Dipper explains that the zombie guy doesn't even blink, so obviously he's not human. Mabel doesn't really believe him and says that maybe he's just blinking when you're blinking. That's actually kind of funny. Anyway, they do that overdone sibling thing where despite Dipper showing a bunch of plausible evidence, Mabel gets really angry for the first time in her life and says that her boyfriend is just a normal guy. Surely she's not oblivious to everything going on. There's just no way, right? You know what? I guess it is possible that everything could just be a coincidence and that the boyfriend is just some weird guy who probably streams all day and doesn't usually leave the house. I mean, it's not like we have any definitive proof that he's—
I guess I can be kind of paranoid sometimes and—
Wait, what?
Dipper obviously freaks out, and now that he has proof, decides to tell Stan about everything. But turns out Uncle Stan is too busy hustling and grinding, so Dipper gets completely ignored. Mabel is on a date with her boyfriend in the middle of the woods now, so Dipper really needs to get to her in time before she, like, I don't know, dies or something, which is when we finally see the golf cart. I bet this will be a very calm and enjoyable ride. Switching to Mabel's date now, and turns out that her boyfriend actually tells her that he has something important to say. He's got a secret and he wants to share it with her, but Mabel has to promise not to freak out. This is finally the time that we learn the truth about the boyfriend. He turns around and slowly unzips his sweater, which is never the play, by the way. Zipperless hoodies all day. Zippers are just too annoying. The boyfriend unzips his sweater to reveal—
Is this weird? Is this too weird? You need to sit down.
So, good news. Turns out the boyfriend isn't a zombie, but bad news. Turns out he's actually like 5 different gnomes stacked on top of each other. This isn't really the same thing, but it reminds me of Vincent from BoJack Horseman, and any chance I get to talk about this show, I'll take. Also, I want to point out that earlier when Dipper accidentally showed the gnome page to Mabel, he was actually right. It doesn't really mean much, but it's just a quirky thing they put in, which I appreciate. Anyway, the gnomes explain that they're looking for a queen, and that's the whole point of this dating thing. They want Mabel to come with them and be their mommy or something, I don't know. Turns out they actually want to marry Mabel, but because she's 12 years old and not a fucking gnome, she declines the offer. Because of this, the gnomes get angry and decide to kidnap her, logically. Skipping to the gnome's secret hideout now, turns out that there's just a bunch of these guys. They're trying to grab Mabel, but because she's a lot bigger than them, she just overpowers them easily. Dipper finally shows up and realizes that his zombie theory was wrong, so he reads up about the gnomes in the book very quickly, but apparently their weaknesses are unknown. I'll tell you what, give me a baseball bat and some brass knuckles, and I promise you I'll find a weakness. So Dipper quickly grabs Mabel and they get in the golf cart and drive away, but then, something that wasn't mentioned before, the gnomes can actually stack each other a lot more than just 5 at a time. Hundreds, actually. Hundreds of them come together, forming one giant gnome monster. This reminds me of my Danny Phantom video where that lunch lady grabbed a bunch of meat to do the same thing. Watch that video if you like meat. Let's go. And it's here when we finally find out what was chasing Dipper and Mabel at the very beginning. It's the gnome monster, obviously. They drive away super fast. They even fight some gnomes off, but because of a tree the gnomes throw, the golf cart breaks down in front of Stan's shop, and the siblings have nowhere to go. But thankfully, Uncle Stan is around, right?
Behold, the world's most distracting object. Just try to look away. You can't.
The gnomes trap the kids, so Mabel figures there's only one way out of this scenario. She claims defeat and says that she'll marry the gnomes if they don't kill anyone. It's a very sad moment when the happy gnome climbs down and gives Mabel a ring. Mabel says to make it official, there's just one last thing that they have to do, and that's kiss. So the main gnome gets ready, puts his lips together, and, well... Mabel quickly grabs the leaf blower from earlier and blows all the gnomes away. They all fall apart and run away because in the end, there's nothing scarier than a woman who's been lied to. Also, again, the earlier scene involving the kiss and the leaf blower actually ended up serving a purpose, so hats off to this show for just being cool as fuck. Dipper and Mabel talk for a bit. Mabel is kind of bummed out because her boyfriend wasn't human, but at the end of the day, the twins have each other and that's what matters. They enter the store and Stan notices the mood is a little down after a long day, so he lets Dipper and Mabel pick out one item from the store to keep forever, proving in the end that he's not really that bad of a guy, I guess. Dipper picks out the iconic Gravity Falls hat and Mabel picks out a fucking grappling hook.
Wouldn't you rather have, like, a doll or something?
Later that night, and everything is well, the kids are happy and know that they can finally trust each other. But we then pan downward and find Uncle Stan approaching a vending machine, which then turns out to be a secret entrance into a basement. So I guess when you think about it, you really can't trust anyone in Gravity Falls. And that's it. That was Gravity Falls. Was it good? Honestly, I'd say it was actually really good. Reminder that this was my first time watching the show ever, so there was literally no bias here. I can honestly say I'm thoroughly impressed. It made me laugh. It got me spooked. And the best part is, it's only 2 seasons, so I can actually see myself investing the time to watch this thing start to finish. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I won't. Who knows? I will say I'll be dreaming about killer gnomes for at least a week, so that's good. If you guys like the video, please give the video a like. It helps out a ton. Become a member if you can and want your name on the screen right now. Check out the full cartoon playlist I have if you liked what you saw. I have a bunch of videos just like this. Paula Abdul scores this one a solid 5 stack gnomes out of 5. And yeah, thanks for watching.
And there's a goat on my bed.
You need to sit down. I'd fire all of you if I could.